Courage. You see, endurance is not going to be a problem for melancholic people. The melancholic tends to be consistent, faithful, patient, and persistent. He tends to handle the big crisis with aplomb. They are very endurant people. Why? And they are more endurant than the choleric, biologically speaking. Why? Because they are deep, and they can understand they understand easily the meaning of sorrow, the meaning of suffering, and very often you see those melancholic people, and you think they are suffering, they can suffer from very different things, but at the same time their capacity to injure biologically is much stronger than the capacity that other temperaments can have. So they have a natural capacity for endurance, the melancholic. They're faithful. It's easy for them to be faithful. They live in the past. Choleric people live in the future. They go for something. Melancholic people, they live in the past. The past is always present in their present. The past is always with them. Always with them. It's a strength, of course, a big strength to move with your past all the time. The past is now. It's not in the. They have a vision of time. The melancholic people is very different than the other temperaments. In the present, there is always the past. He tends to focus on all the difficulties of a new adventure. He tends to be overly cautious. He tends to worry about things that are not important. His fear of the future tends to stymie his activity. Melancholics are fundamentally challenged by audacity. I brought to you an example, Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was a bold melancholic. Intense melancholia was one of the most striking features of his personality. But Martin Luther King overcame his fears and took direct action as a leader of the African American civil rights movement. Martin Luther King was a very melancholic personality. He was almost 100% a melancholic. Who would say that he was not a man of action? He became a man of action. But he was not a biological doer, not at all. This guy was a writer. He was a pastor. He made the best speech in the history of humanity. He improvised. I Have a Dream, which is considered the best speech in the history of humanity. Pure improvisation. This is an artist. He's 100% an artist, Martin Luther King. He was not born in order to become the leader of a big civil rights movement in the United States. He became, because he became courageous. He became bold. He became a bold person. But biologically speaking, he is not a bold person. He's just a melancholic. So it's possible. It's possible, if you're a melancholic person, it's possible also to bring action in your life. It's possible to do things. It's possible to practice audacity. And if you do it, you become a great person. If the choleric practice humility, they become incredible people and real leaders. If a melancholic person practice audacity, he becomes also an incredible leader. One of the most famous melancholic leaders in the history of humanity is Moses. Moses is a guy of doubts, pessimism. He tried to explain God that Aaron, his brother, may be a better fit for the work. He doesn't like the job. He doesn't like action. Now, who would say that he's not a doer? He's probably the greatest doer of all times. He brought these people to the promised land. He did it. He did it against his biological nature. He was full of doubts, this guy. He was 100% a melancholic. So you can do it. It depends on the way you build character on your temperament. What are the emotions? The emotions of the specific passions, I would say, of the melancholic. Pessimism, anxiety, sadness. These are typical temptations or typical passions of the melancholic people. Pessimism, anxiety, sadness, critical spirit. Yeah, they have a tendency to be critical of everything and to be critical of people. If you have a beautiful project and you present this project to them, they will say, well, it will not work. Too many problems here. This pessimism, they are critical towards people. They bear grudges very easily. If you offend a melancholic a few times, he will never forget you. He has your image here. And it will take years for him. He can forgive you. If he's a Christian, he will forgive you. But you will still be here. Just when he will think about you, he will feel unhappy. For years. Why? Because he's deep. A choleric, you can offend him a few times, he doesn't care, he doesn't even see you. He goes for a goal. And you cannot be an obstacle in the goal. Biologically speaking, cholerics have no problem. If you do to the choleric bad things, it's not a big problem. You can make peace with him very quickly. With a melancholic, no, it would take years to reestablish a relationship of confidence with a melancholic if you've broken that relationship. Because the guy is deep, so things go very deep inside, and it's very difficult to get them out. So these are, I would say, passions that the melancholic need to control, need to subdue. But he has no problem with energizing noble passions because he tends to value all that which is noble.